Hey everyone, this is Ciderhelm. So I am pretty excited because in just a few hours, I'm going to be headed out with my family to the mountains. We're going to a cabin, we're going to be with extended family. It is possible, even a little bit hopeful, that we're going to have a good internet connection up there. If we do, you might see some sort of content this week, but nothing is planned, nothing is scheduled, and we could be out the whole week. So just be aware of that. Now before we jump into the Q&A, I have a question for you. I'm looking at you, audience. Are you new to League of Legends? Are you somewhat new to League of Legends? You know, just a few hundred games or less? Or do you have friends or family who are just getting started in League of Legends? If so, you really need to check out www.learntheleague.com. This is the Learn the League ebook. This is what I frequently advertise on my channel because I've written it. It's something that I care about. I have poured a lot of effort into it, and I believe it is the absolute best resource that a new player can have to get caught up, to understand the game, to understand the strategy and the items and everything going on behind the scenes in the game that takes a long time to otherwise pick up. So I do recommend you check that out. So I've just completed the 10th update to the ebook. This is the second update for Season 3. We've really caught up on the items that we've started to see people purchasing and why they're purchasing it, which champions are purchasing it, and why they're doing that too. And just added a lot of the things that we're starting to see, the emergent gameplay that we're starting to see in Season 3. Also added a new section on ranked. But overall, this is a massive, this is a full-blown university-level education on League of Legends. You want to get this ebook. If you study it, you will become a better player. You will be able to play smarter, and as I always say, if you play smarter, you can have more fun. You don't have to play more hardcore. You don't have to play more frequently. You can play smarter. And since the ebook is downloadable in PDF format, of course, you can print it, you can read it on your computer, or you can read it on devices as well. So check out www.learntheleague.com. Thank you for all the support and all the people who've purchased it so far and loved it, and obviously I want you to try it out too. I got another side note because this is of interest to my channel here. We do have Turning Point. So if you guys have been following, I hope a lot of you have. I'm working on my 10th, well, I've got the 10th episode for Turning Point done, but you guys can't see it quite yet. So I have that, and that always publishes to Machinima Realm. And I now have a playlist on my channel, by the way, if you don't want to subscribe to Machinima Realm, though, of course, I'd recommend you do. But if you don't want to subscribe to Machinima Realm for whatever, you can subscribe to the playlist on my channel page now, which just covers the videos I do for other channels. So I've got a little bit of an announcement here, which is I am very likely to be signing a contract soon to do 2 more episodes, not of Turning Point, of an esports thing about pro players, about pro plays, etc. I don't want to get too much into the details, but there's a good chance I'll be doing 2 more weekly episodes of a particular show related to pro players, related to analysis on them, not just, interviews or anything like that, but actual analysis. And that's something to look forward to. But it does come with a caveat. I will not have as much time to actually put into my streaming for Twitch when I commit to this. The streaming that I do in the afternoon at about 1 p.m. or a little earlier, and then I do it for several hours in the afternoon, as consistently and as regularly as I can, that unfortunately is not something that actually has ever, in the last year and a half, that I've actually been trying to stream and been trying to make something out of it, since about December of, I want to say 2011, so that's about a year and 4 months or whatever. That's still not worth it. I mean, even on my very, very best day, I don't know, I think I can throw this number out without running into any NDAs or anything like that. On my very best day on streaming, when I had 1,500 people on, when I was doing those ranked matches, when I was putting up an ad between the games, I earned so little money on that. And I don't do it just for the money. Don't get me wrong, and I'll explain what I'm going to do with streaming because that relates to, why I'm doing it. But that regular scheduled show, I earned about $3 or $2 an hour off that. And that was my best day. So honestly, streaming has never been something, it's never been my best content. I do love playing the games and I do love showing off, but that scheduled stream, that scheduled show, that's never been my best content. So I'm going to be steering off of that, and that's going to be a fairly permanent change. I don't see any way that I could be enticed to actually do that daily show at a daily time unless I come up with a show that is also something that I'm going to publish to YouTube regularly, because YouTube is, I do know the advertising space there, I do know how to make that work. But that said, I do love streaming and I do love playing games and letting you guys watch them and all that. So What you have seen me do a lot recently, and over the past, ever since I moved to Twitch, I will just start streams if I'm playing games. If I want to stream, I'll stream. On a lot of days I've been streaming, or on a lot of weeks I've been streaming 3 or 4 nights a week. That's nights in addition to the afternoons. So when I'm playing games like that, I'm going to keep doing that. As long as I'm going to be playing anyway, and I'm not just, scheduling a show and just going to make sure I play these games during prime work hours when I really should be putting those into the videos that I'm doing for this new channel. As long as I'm playing anyway, I'll be streaming. So that's something to look forward to. Just be aware of that. The scheduled stream's probably going away. I'll still be getting clips. I'll still be getting gameplay up to YouTube from streams. If you're interested in that, I know a lot of the audience is, and some of the audience is not, and that's okay. But there you go. So let's get into the question and answer. Let's go ahead and start with, I'm going to divide this one. I divided this one, I hope, a little bit better than the last Q&A session, where any personal questions or anything like that, anything not League of Legends related, they're going to be at the end. So we're going to stick pretty squarely to League of Legends here. So let's start with a question from Cody. How do you build to counter the lane you are in, and what are your tips for harassing and farming at the same time? Okay, so aside from picking a counter champion, like if you're in draft pick, you see somebody picks, I don't know, somebody picks Darius and you pick Jace to counter them, or anything like that. Aside from actually picking a counter champion, you can also counter them by how they deal by knowing how they're dealing their damage. So for example, let's say you're going against a Yorick. Well, you know that Yorick, he can spam ghouls, he's really going to try to harass you, but he does have one core problem, is that he runs out of mana. So if you can out-sustain that, whether you have sustained mechanics on your champion, something where you can heal yourself, or if you just want to bring a lot of potions to the lane, that kind of thing. If you can out-sustain him, you'll do fine. I have found, and of course, Yorick, if he's a good player, he's going to look for ways to do, to take advantage of that and not be totally pushed out of lane and still get the CS they want. But if you want to actually survive a lane against, again, the example being Yorick, you want to out-sustain them. So you want to know how the champion's dealing damage. Are they going to do it in a big amount of burst, and you have to be able to survive that burst? Or are they going to do it over time with harassment, and you just have to be able to out-sustain them, etc.? Do they have a small mana pool, so they may be able to do highly damaging abilities, but their mana pool doesn't really let them sustain it? Things like that. So that comes down to game knowledge. But I would say, separate of the champion you're going with, one of the little keys that was enormously helpful to me when I first learned it, and I always keep it in mind when I'm playing either an AD carry or an AP carry, or anybody who's ranged, if you're going to use, okay, so the thing is, the enemy has to last hit minions, right? And most champions are not going to be spamming their abilities to do that, but some will. Some can actually get away with that, like Vladimir, Mordekaiser, a few of these really good pushers who don't have mana to worry about. They can actually spam their abilities fairly frequently once they're a little ways into the game and just clear the wave or whatever. But one of the things people are going to do, they're going to stop and they're going to auto-attack a minion to get that last hit. So if you're ranged, or if you have an ability like a skill shot or something, and you can just watch for that, get into the rhythm and saying not just what you're trying to last hit personally, but also what they're trying to last hit. That's what you want to watch out for. And when they move into last hit a low health minion of yours, drop your skill shot on top of them or drop an auto attack on them. Consistent harassment will do wonders for you. And aside from that, if you're going to use damaging skill shots, when you can, you want to look for opportunities and get in the mindset of, like pass through skill shots like, I don't know, Lucent Singularity, Kog'Maw's, what is it, the Artillery Bra? I don't remember. His ultimate, Kog'Maw's ultimate. When you have opportunities where you can last hit a minion and at the same time you can damage an opponent, those are wonderful things. So actually, Kog'Maw is not the best example because you're looking for things that you can do 1 through 6 as well. But anyway, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Anybody that has a pass-through skill shot where you can get yourself in a position where you're going to be able to deal damage to your opponent and to the minion you're last hitting. And what you want to avoid, and I said this in the Don't Feed Lux, what you want to avoid is dropping a skill shot or damage that's not actually going to kill the minions and is going to make it that much harder for you to last hit because they'll all be such low health that your own minions are going to kill those off before you can get all the last hits off you want. Just things to keep in mind. Chi asks, how do you feel about the new champ? So the new champion he's referring to is Zach. I'm going to be completely honest. I am not terribly interested in him as he's not the type of champion I prefer playing. He seems fairly straightforward on his abilities. Doesn't seem like he's, I don't know. He's not my type of champion, so I haven't been terribly interested in him. But that said, if his numbers are pretty strong, I think he's going to do pretty well. It's all going to come down to the actual numbers on his abilities, because he's not an outstanding champion mechanically. He doesn't have tons of mechanics that he's going to be working with. You know, he's not like a Jace or a Lee Sin or even a Nidalee or an Elise for that matter. He's not one of these, you know, high-end champions. So it's all about the numbers, and we'll see how that plays out. When he was first released under the PB, it didn't look so good. But I think that situation may be improving, and people may be getting a better idea of how to play him. All right, Vil asks the question, what is the next champion you're going to do your Don't Feed on? Most likely Kassadin. I've really started to fall in love with Kassadin. I've only been playing him a little bit. I wanted somebody that was kind of the polar opposite of Lux, because I've really been enjoying Lux in ranked play, but I wanted somebody who had kind of the other characteristics that Lux doesn't have. Somebody who goes in, somebody with extreme levels of mobility. I'm still kind of failing it up with him because I still have to get used to his early game farm. I'm doing okay on that. But the main thing is I have to get used to his mana restrictions and what I can actually get away with. But I do kind of understand what I need to improve on him. And then from there, I think I'm going to really like him. I really do like the mobile champions. I loved Ahri when she came out, especially when she didn't have the delay between each of her jumps. I loved Ahri, and I love champions with high mobility. That's why I play a lot of champions with high mobility. And Kassadin seems to fit into that role. But I'm still getting used to him, but it's very likely. I've fallen in love with this champion. That means it's going to be a good Don't Feed. It's very likely he's going to be the next Don't Feed. Michael Vandermeulen. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name too badly. I noticed you tend to prefer squishier champs. Is that because you were a tank for so long in World of Warcraft? No, I do actually enjoy the tankier champions, and I used to play the tankier champions a lot more. I used to play a Mumu a lot. Galio I used to play a lot more than I do now. I still like Galio, but I play Galio more of an AP, though he is still pretty tanky. Nautilus, loved him when he came out, and well, heck, all of them actually. Leona, love Leona. I really do like the tanky champions, and I love the control they have over fights. But I've come to appreciate the value of champions who can carry games on their own, champions who are not all-in champions. Most of the tanks, they get into a fight and their goal is to overcome the opposing team in that fight. Either, you know, even if they die, they want to have done enough disruption, enough damage, etc., to help their team win that fight. I've come to appreciate having champions that do not rely on solely getting into fights. And that's actually why I've stopped playing as much Olaf and why I've stopped playing as much Nocturne as well. The more a champion has the ability to stay at range, even if they can get in. Like Jace I really enjoy because I've got the best of both worlds. But yeah, that's all. I mean, I love the tanking champions, I do, but being able to carry games and being able to engage in a team fight, even when your team is behind, without total fear of, you know, you're always going to die every time you get into a team fight because they're just so far ahead on golden items. I don't like that. So that's why I've kind of moved on. But Kassadin, best of both worlds, fairly tanky. I mean, not a true tank, right? But fairly tanky, fairly survivable. Double Rod of Ages, right? And he's got a good escape too, so I like that. Goddard asks, what are the ideal roles to start ranked off with to get a nice ranking? Whatever you're best at. So here's kind of how I feel. I feel that carries and junglers. Junglers can also be carries, obviously. Carries kind of a generic term. But AP carry, AP mid, solo top, if you're really good at solo top, junglers have a lot of impact. Even the AD carry, if you're very, very good with the AD carry. I tend to think that if you can carry a game really well, you should play a carry because that's going to get you pretty far ahead. And a support, if you're supporting genuinely like poor players who are definitely less skilled than you, it seems like you can do everything in the world and you're not going to be able to overcome it. You can help out a lot, and you know, I might be overthinking it. That's just my personal impression. That's always been my personal impression. A support and a tank can only do so much if the team is just backwards, doing everything completely wrong, not following up on initiation, anything like that. The support and the carry the support and the tank just don't seem like they're quite as good. One moment, my wife has messaged me. Hello, I am recording, but I have been linked something. And yes, I do actually use MSN Messenger, but only until Skype replaces it. And it's not because I like MSN or anything like that. It's just because we needed a form of communication that was already installed on our computers inside of our house. I use it for absolutely no one but my wife. So take it for what it is. But I do actually have Skype, though. I mean, I don't know why that matters. Okay, enough with that. Anyway, so my personal opinion, play a carry. Play somebody with a lot of CC. If that... And I don't mean like a hard carry. Like even like a Pantheon or a Hecarim or something like that. You can do a lot in games as those champions. Assassins, really strong bruisers. So I guess I'm not actually... I'm thinking... I don't mean the actual traditional term carry. I actually am just referring to play somebody who can carry a game, who can take a bad team and win the game for that bad team. And that's going to be more likely to do well. But all of that said, and I do need to get back to this, teams with supports are actually very slightly more likely to win than any other type of team. I think it's a 51% win rate for teams with supports, whereas the average, of course, is 50%. Now, I am saying that entirely anecdotally based on a Reddit title that I did not actually click. So that may be incorrect, but I believe based on the statistics from the title of a thread on Reddit, which may or may not be complete garbage, that having a support on your team makes you more likely to win. On average. Take it for what it is. 1% is a pretty small number, but if you don't have a support, maybe be prepared to handle that role. Jacques, or Jockey, or Jock, I'm sorry for your name. Not for your name that your parents gave you, but because I butchered it. As a very experienced player, why don't you try out for a team or make one of your own? I'm not that good. I do like to emphasize this on occasion. I am not a pro player. I am not at the pro level of play. I have a pretty good understanding of what it takes to be a pro player, and that helps me understand that I'm definitely not there. One of those things, my in-game mechanics, especially my actions per minute, especially, just my mouse play, my mouse precision, keeping track of my character in team fights, small things like this that are very critical to playing at a pro level. I do not do as well as pros. So... yeah, I also am not terribly social. I'm kind of an antisocial person. So that's worth keeping in mind too. I'm not sure I could handle, well, I used to be a raid leader, but I pretty much hated everybody in my raid. And that's not true, but that's probably the impression they got. Abdul asks, what do you think of LeBlanc in Season 3 and her late game? Do you think she still falls off hard and becomes a second support, or with the new items, can she be a little more viable in the late game? Okay, so LeBlanc has basically always been the same way. If LeBlanc has an incredible early game, she'll still be relevant in the late game. No question about it. She's always going to do well if a carry cannot survive her burst, provided she's smart with her positioning. Meaning if she can flank, if she can get into a good position, if she can, make smart plays, she's still going to knock out a carry in the late game in, I don't know, a half second. I think I had a game on stream recently where I didn't pay... It was late game and LeBlanc killed me in probably 0.2 seconds. I think it was from full health too. It was pretty crazy. So she can absolutely still be amazing in the late game, but many LeBlanc players aren't going to consistently, they're going to be hit or miss on this. They're not going to consistently get to that level of play in the late game. So she's kind of frustrating to play against in the early game because she's going to roam and she's probably going to pick up kills. And if she does well, she's doing well. It's very frustrating to be dead. So the early game is very frustrating for her opponents. But unless she does well, she's totally irrelevant in the late game. She really doesn't bring a lot to the late game unless she is ahead of the curve. So I kind of feel that way about Shaco too. I feel like Shaco has it even to a worse degree, where Shaco, he can split push, he can bait, he can do all these things. He can be frustrating to play against, but unless Shaco does amazingly, he's not as big of a part of late game team fights, even I know this is kind of swerving off the LeBlanc topic, but I kind of put both of them in the same category of they have to do amazingly early to do well late game. And I think LeBlanc is a little better than Shaco in that regard. Zeke, as in Zeke's Herald, how are you liking Season 3 of League of Legends? I love it. And I am totally serious. It's like, this is not a sales pitch. I love it. All the new items are interesting. The items were handled well. It kind of got rid of the staleness. Like, I can actually go in on my favorite champions and say, okay, this game I want to do this for this reason. I actually, Morello Namicon because I'm dealing with a Swain. I can look at, say, on Jace. I love Jace. Obviously, a lot of you guys know that. But I can actually look at the Iceborne Gauntlet. I hope that's the right name for it. I can actually look at that. I can actually look at a Muramana and say, okay, I want this for this reason, or I don't want this for this reason. Instead, I want a Frozen Mallet this game, or instead I want a Zeke's Herald, which comes to mind. I have a lot of flexibility, and I can logically defend that flexibility. And I think it's really true for AD carries as well with the Blade of the Ruined King. Of course, Bruises can use Blade of the Ruined King too. It's not quite as good, in my opinion, on them as AD carries, and I think that's what the nerfs were kind of aimed at. But yeah, I really, really like the new items. I think that adds so much to the game. I do like the new league system, but I haven't been terribly invested in ranked until this season. This is the first season that I've actually gone and played a bunch of ranked games. So I will say that the old ELO system was not interesting to me. I didn't want to be stuck in a perpetual grind, but the league system actually gives, as their goal was, achievable small milestone goals, and I like that. So I think that's handled pretty well. Season 3 is fantastic. It really is. Also, I'm also the League Championship Series. Like, I think they're handling that well too. Obviously, there's some issues with that, but it's giving constant content for us to look at, pro players and everything going on with that. I just wish they would allow people to spectate other top games at the same time instead of always putting that, well, this is a tangent, I'm going off on a tangent. In the game client, it kind of bothers me when, okay, I know LCS is going on, I'm interested in, or I know MLG is going on, I'm interested in that. Okay, that's cool. But I still want a listing of people who are playing right now in games that I can go and spectate right now, because I find that interesting. And I don't like it when they put the ad that blocks the whole thing. But yeah, hopefully. I think they've heard that. I think they've heard that criticism. I saw a couple threads about it, but I'm just voicing it again. Nico asks, why did Olaf fall off from 100% pick or ban to not being played? His ultimate and his undertow got nerfed. Eric Havikan. I'm sorry. What's your opinion on Volibear? Is he underpowered or just overlooked? Okay, Volibear is amazing. He's a straight-on charge initiator, kind of like Rammus in that regard, in that he's kind of vulnerable to line skill shots, especially snares. So, like, a Morgana can easily stop him in his tracks, a Lux can easily stop him in his tracks, at least briefly. Okay, that's his weakness. Volibear is an amazing champion. He's very strong. I do frequently see him in pro matches, so I'm going to throw that out there as he's probably not the very best initiator, but the very best initiators are often banned. I see Volibear. I don't think he's totally fallen off the face of the earth. Maybe I'm just lucky in what I'm seeing, but I see him, and I don't know. I think he's great. He really makes me angry when he's doing well and he's not on my team. But he's very bulky. He does well in the meta. He does well in kind of this season so far, where stacking health seems to be fairly effective. And I know some of that's shifting away. But hey, what better champion to stack health on than a champion that scales on health, which is Volibear. So I disagree with your opinion that he's either underpowered or overlooked. I think he's a good champion, and I do think he does get played. Pablo asks, a couple of my friends and I have tried out an all-support team. What are your thoughts on support champions playing other lanes? Okay, an interesting question. Some support champions are really ridiculously annoying and fairly good at other lanes. Kind of in the same sense that some AD carries, actually, namely Tristana and Ezreal, can be very annoying if they're built AP and can actually be fairly effective. Okay, support champions. First off, an all-support team would be very annoying to play against. I absolutely believe it. So Janna and Lulu jump to mind as two champions, and Karma currently jump to mind as champions that are traditionally seen as support, but can do fairly well as ability power casters. So having them as a support team, in fact, Soraka to a degree, not as much as the others. Boy, it'd be very annoying to play against. Unfortunately, I haven't had the pleasure of playing against an all support team, but unfortunately, it's not likely to consistently win against pretty good players. It actually probably would work a lot of the time, but it's probably not going to be consistent against AD carries that are able to keep their distance, among other things, continue to get farm, and continue to get their items to a point where they can burst people down, regardless of them all being supports. It's really going to depend on your opponents making mistakes and not getting fed to the point where they get those damage multipliers that allow them to easily burst someone down. Obviously, healing reduction on top of that's going to make it harder, although some champions with shields, Lulu's health gain, they can bypass healing and still keep a champion alive. What am I going to say? It sounds very annoying. It sounds like it could be very successful. I don't discourage you from it. That's all. Jake says, Garen is an easy champion to play, but can be tough to play against good counters. How would you suggest countering his counters? Play a different champion. Daryl, I've been seeing more and more changes in meta, such as Fiora bot, Caitlyn top, Karthus jungle, and Ezreal mid. Do you think the meta of Summoner's Rift will change anytime soon, or has it become written in stone? People will always do what consistently wins games on average more than other methods. So sometimes this means going against the established meta, especially in draft pick where you can see what they're picking. Overall, will it change? Maybe. The solo top bruiser fighter, the mid AP carry, maybe, but that's likely to occur as a result of a fundamental power shift in how champions operate and how strong they are. So what we saw was very, very strong bruisers and fighters at the start of the season. And what happened was that started spilling over to other lanes. You started seeing them at mid lane. And that's the kind of fundamental power shift that has to occur. But on the whole, for the balance of the game, I don't think it's too likely we're going to see a huge change. Just because top lane, you tend to want that fighter or bruiser, the solo lane, I should say. You tend to want that fighter or bruiser, to be somebody who can survive and can sustain ideally and can escape if they need to. Mid lane being the safest lane is usually where you want to put your AP carry so they can farm, they can get those levels. And then bot lane, of course, same concept. So it could change, but we'll have to see. There could be some innovation that Riot could force in there, but I don't think they want to forcibly change the meta. I think they want to see emergent gameplay. They want to see people actually change it on their own, based on some of these new champion mechanics we've seen or new champion styles that we've seen. Whether it happens or not, anybody's guess. Roger asks, who is your favorite champion and what is your favorite lane? Okay, so here's how this works. My favorite champion is Jace, but my book knowledge of bottom lane is probably better than any other lane. Like, I know what's going on with the supports. I know what's going on with the AD carries. I kind of understand the counters. I kind of understand the warding, the timing, etc. in bottom lane. But my best performance tends to be at mid lane. When I play AP carries, I tend to have better performance in games than I do when I'm playing AD carries bot. And part of that is just because I've started to really enjoy the AP carries, so I spent more time on them. So my mechanics are probably best at bot. My gameplay and my actual performance game to game is usually best at mid playing an AP carry. Probably my weakest general performance is going to be top lane and jungle, just personally, which is unfortunate because that's also where I play Jace. So I don't play as much Jace as I'd like to, but that's probably better for the audience because I already play a lot of Jace anyway. Billy Hines, is it better to start to main 1 or 2 lanes for ranks or try to get good at all lanes? Main 1 or 2 champions and main 1 role. And I mean, like, really study, really invest, be really good at those. But try to learn the other roles. Try to learn other champions. Try to be at least passably competent in other lanes. So if you need to, if you absolutely need to, you can get to the other lane and you can still not throw the game for your team. But I see time and time and time again, extremely good players have main champions that have gotten them to where they are, and they're still good on other champions, they're still capable of picking up other champions, but you will find people with hundreds or even thousands of games on just one champion, and then all the rest of the champions make up a small percentage of the games they've played. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to be exceptionally good at least one role and probably not too invested in the others, in the sense that you want to be spending your time getting even better at your primary role. Something to keep in mind. But again, learn a lot, but focus on a few champions. That's my advice. Dave asks, is Malphite viable to main and ranked? Also, if given the chance, would you play him? Is he viable to play in ranked? Sure, if he's not banned. That's kind of what it comes down to. He has a great team fight initiation, and that's a huge thing. That is a game-changing thing. That's kind of why, Blitzcrank gets banned, because he has a great initiation. Initiators are always going to be potentially very good. Malphite has one of the stronger initiates, so something to keep in mind. You can get away with maining him, again, provided he's not banned. So, also, if given the chance, would you play him? No, I'm not interested in him. I don't know. I tried to play him. He seems kind of interesting, but he's not my type of champion. It kind of gets back to, like, I don't really want an all-in champion. He's not the most exciting champion when he's not all-in. John Michael Shares asks, how popular do you think esports will become to people besides gamers? Do you believe with time it will become as commonplace as, say, football or baseball? Okay. Esports, this is sort of not a League of Legends question. We're about to break into the non-League of Legends questions, but it sort of is. How popular? I want to approach this a very particular way. How popular do you think esports will become to people besides gamers? And then you're referencing football or baseball. I don't know about you, but most of the people that I know who are very interested in sports play sports. And I don't mean like currently play sports, or if they do, they play it casually. But when they were growing up, they played sports. Now, I'm not sure if they were first inspired maybe by their parents or just by TV or whatever. I assume parents and just the culture they're in. That's what first inspired them to try sports. So kind of chicken before the egg. Did they first get interested in it from watching it and then played it and then, keep watching it? Or did they first play it, because their friends were playing it or whatever, and then get interested in watching it? I'm not totally sure, but that's just kind of something to think about. I think a lot of the audience for esports is always going to be gamers. You can't get too invested in something if you don't understand the concepts behind it, especially at a high level like this. And I mean high level in the sense of, okay, football has a lot of rules. There's a lot to football, soccer, American football I'm referring to. There's a lot to basketball. There's a lot to baseball. But there's not nearly as much to these as actually understanding what's going on in esports, particularly League of Legends, but other games as well. You try to watch a StarCraft match, and the shoutcasters can make it interesting. And if you have a passing understanding, it can be interesting. But as you understand the game more, that's what makes it just incredibly interesting to watch. And I don't think it's going to have a huge following beyond people who are already gamers, but culturally, we're going to have a lot more gamers as time goes on. Now, I'm coming from a generation where, and I know some of you guys in the audience are as old or older than me. I'm about 28 right now. I am 28 right now, but I'm almost 29. Pretty excited about that. I'm coming from a generation where gaming had no place culturally. I grew up where, if you were a gamer, you were made fun of or anything like that. I never really got made fun of, but I didn't really announce that I was a gamer either. Actually, I'm sure I did get made fun of a lot, but not for being a gamer. That's the important part. It's an entirely different world now. Like, It just completely is. Now, I get it. You can still be a nerd. You can still be a dork. You can still be made fun of, growing up in high school right now. I get that. But a lot of these people who are making fun of you are also playing games on their phone or doing whatever. So it's something to keep in mind. Culturally, games are far more acceptable than they've ever used to be. The generations behind mine are the ones that don't understand it, but, you know, give it 20 years. And this thing is, esports are going to be huge. So something to keep in mind. All right, so we talked about non-league questions and how we were going to break into them, and I'm going to give you the first one. Eric says, curious to how your stream setup works, what you use and such. A very generic question with a very generic answer. I will make a different video for that. I have a really cool studio, and it really deserves its own video because it's extraordinarily hard to describe this studio without actually giving you the full look of it. So you can see right here. In fact, well, let's see what I can do. Okay, so over there you see, that's the second computer. That's the one that actually handles all the streaming. So you can see the monitor for it and the keyboard for it. And that's why sometimes I lean over if I don't want to use my remote. Well, I'll show you the remote too. Oh, and hit the mic at the same time. So here's my little Android Nexus 7 or whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly what it is. This is actually my remote. I change scenes. I start the stream. I can end the stream with it. I don't usually end the stream with it. So I've got a remote here. I've got two computers. This one's my gaming computer, the one I'm in front of. It's also my video production computer. I'm actually recording on it right now. I can record on both computers. I can do this podcast. When you see the camera view that you're seeing right now, that's coming into this computer that I'm using right now. If you see the other closer up camera or the green screen, that's coming into the other computer right next to me. And I can do both simultaneously. I can do whatever. I've got a very interesting capture card set up. Using two Live Gamer HDs allows me to directly capture the screen on both computers and output to this monitor here. I don't know, the two... What else is there to say? No, there'll be a different video. I don't want to get into the technicalities. It's too big to get into, but it is a cool setup. I'm pretty happy with it. Not just for streaming. It's actually just helpful for video production generally. So there you go. Sean, how did you and your wife meet? Well, she got tickets on an airplane to Seattle, and we met at SeaTac. That's how we met. She walked off the plane, got through security, immigration. Not immigration. Is it immigration at that point? I don't think it's immigration at that point. That is how we met. Abimail says, here are a few in case you need any. Are you strict? Oh, I guess a few questions. Are you a strictly PC gamer? If no, what console titles do you have or have you enjoyed the most? No, I am not a strictly PC gamer. Yeah, I'm, okay. I have been for a bit, but that's only because there's not a new Halo game. I just played a lot of Halo 4 recently. So I didn't really, I played consoles. Well, my first, technically not a console. My first gaming system, I guess, was other than a PC, was a Game Gear my parents bought me. My mom bought it for me. It was a really cool gift, and then some jerk stole it from me. I remember him. I hope he's not doing well with his life. I hope you remember that. Anyway, yeah, my Game Gear was stolen, and I was really young too. I didn't want to admit it to anybody either. I didn't want to tell my mom, which I probably should have done because then I would have gotten it back. But anyway, I had Sonic on there, and that was cool. And I think we got a Super Nintendo after that. So Super Nintendo had been around before that, as I remember. We got that pretty late. And then the first system that I actually got when it came out was the Xbox, the original Xbox. And I was in junior or senior year of high school. I don't remember which. Original Xbox came out. My dad got it for me, had Halo, and oh my gosh, the world opened up to me with Halo. It was such an amazing game. I was so good at it at the time. I mean, of course, everybody who played it a lot was so good at it. They could all do the two-pistol shot and all that stuff. Two-pistol headshot. Two-shot pistol headshot, is that? Whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. And all the twitchiness and all that stuff. So, yeah. I was huge into that, and then I was huge into the next Halo. I was okay into other Xbox games. I can't remember too many. I played some PlayStation with friends. My sister's husband, he had a PlayStation 2 that I played Final Fantasy on. That was my first exposure to Final Fantasy. But yeah, anyway, all things broken down. I have an Xbox 360. I played every Halo game, ODST, Reach, all these things. I will occasionally play other games. Not unfortunately, I just play a lot of PC games. Obviously, I've been big into the MMOs. I've been big into. I played StarCraft a lot. I used to be. I keep saying I am big in RTSs, but I'm not at all anymore. But obviously, League of Legends, all these games. I play a lot of Skyrim. I play a lot of computer games. So yeah, I don't know. The Xbox is actually part of the studio, and that's something I will, that's another thing I'll explain when I explain the studio setup, because I can actually, and I've never done this because there's not a game for me to play. I could easily, with the click of a button, I could easily stream any game on Xbox, that I own, of course, and have it be the totally same format. It's a cool setup. I'm very happy with it. It took me some ingenuity to figure out how I was going to wire the powered splitters and all that stuff around here, the HDMI signal stuff. But yeah, I don't know. And what was it? Something happened too. There's some reason that I know I'm going on a tangent, but this is the oddball questions anyway. There was some reason that I couldn't do Halo 4. Oh, right. I got the contract for Guild Wars. For the Guild Wars videos. And I was excited about I did really enjoy Guild Wars. Guild Wars 2 when I did those videos. But that was a commitment that I had to do. Or I had to play it and I had to, really get into it and see, what I liked about it, make videos about it. So that was right around the time that Halo 4, I would have been streaming Halo 4, but I was so busy with Guild Wars too. So that never happened. I don't know. There you go. That's why you didn't see any Xbox from me. I've been playing pinball. So what is it? Pinball? Is it Pinball FX, I think is the name? You can get it on, just download it from the arcade and then you pay for the tables. I've had some decent scores on that. I'd play that on stream. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Okay, last question of the day. Max Bergy. I don't know what a U is with 2 dots above it. I'm so sorry. What do you plan to do in the future, in 10 to 20 years? There are 3 things. Well, 2 things technically. 3 things. I have always wanted to be a storyteller. I have stories that I need to tell. I'm completely serious about this. I have stories that need to be told, that people need to see and people need to read and people need to enjoy. So there are 2 things that I want to, I would like to be doing in 10 to 20 years. I'd like to be a writer. I'd like to actually have something published that people could look at and read and would be interested in paying for more of, so that can become a living. And I'm not talking about guides. I'm talking about fiction. I'm talking about fantasy fiction primarily. So that's something I want to do. Now, I am under no illusions that I'm going to be the greatest fantasy writer or anything like that, but that's just a dream, something I would like to do. So something to keep in mind. Game design. Now, I have no problem calling myself a game designer because I have designed games. They've just never been published. And it's something, if you read Jesse Schell's Art of Game Design, I live by that book. I think it's amazing. So before I got into game design, I learned game mechanics and I learned how games are built just from observation. I was just interested in it, which is why I do the videos I do on League of Legends. It's why I did the videos I did for World of Warcraft. It's why I did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why I made, theory crafting websites, why I wrote guides, why I do write guides, all this stuff. It's all kind of based on I like to break down the systems in a video game and understand them. Well, anyway, I started getting into game design because eventually I was like, well, I can see the flaws with so-and-so game. I can see what's wrong with this. I have an idea of how to fix it. Then I started thinking, well, what if I were to design my own game? What if I were going to make an awesome game that is the kind of game I would want to play and the kind of game I'd want other people to play, or that other people would enjoy playing? Maybe not everybody, but certainly a large group of people. And so I started reading up on game design. Anyway, one of the things that I like to say is I'm a game designer. And I have legitimately, you know, done design documents, done all that stuff, never delivered a game. I've actually hired people. You know, I've hired programmers that the whole project never worked out. You know, because I don't really know how to organize a project on that level. But I'm a game designer. You gotta be confident. You gotta say I am a game designer. You know, once you understand the concepts, and that's where Jesse Shell says that in Art of Game Design. You know, don't hold yourself back. Don't think a degree is necessary, because I don't believe degrees are necessary for just about anything in the technology world. Until you're getting into stuff that requires physics, until you're getting into stuff that requires, you know, engineering, math, etc. But most stuff, like the stuff I do, I don't need a degree to do it, and yet I'm able to deliver this content. You know, look at all the people on YouTube. They don't need degrees to be good on YouTube. Most of the people on YouTube are not, you know, they're not sitting on PhDs or whatever. What else are... So I dropped out of college. I made Tank Spot. I dropped out of college. And that was one of the best decisions of my life. After, of course, who I married. After, of course, our son. So this is tangential. This isn't even part of the question. But there are so many people. What I'm trying to remember the statistic I read. Let's see. Billionaires. I'm doing a Google search. Billionaires without degrees. Because I think this is it. Because I believe, and I could be wrong, but of billionaires, the college dropouts, the people who didn't finish college, you know, when they were in college, the amount of money they have outpaces the billionaires who have completed degrees. So Gabe Newell, obviously a lot of you know him. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, I mean, of course, I'm under no illusions I'll be in my chosen fields. I'll never be a billionaire, but it's just something to keep in mind. Extraordinarily successful people, there are a lot of them who don't have degrees. Something to keep in mind. I believe degrees belong primarily to people who are doing hard sciences, math, things like that. But I believe a lot of people do not pursue what they should be pursuing with their lives because they don't understand they don't have to be part of the system. You can, in the technology world, do great things as a self-made person. And I don't mean that in the sense of like you're totally self-made, because the name has the phrase self-made man has connotations. You know, you still have influences. You're still influenced by people. But you can be a rugged individualist. You can be an entrepreneur. You can be your own person. And you can be extraordinarily successful, self-employed, without a degree. And you never have to care. You know, you never have to care about the job interview where they say, well, what's up with your degree? Okay, I can point to a resume. So job interviews are never a problem for me. But I don't even have to go and get a job. And that's what's great. So, I mean, I have a job. But you get what I'm saying? I think you get what I'm saying. Anyway, enough with the tangent. I love you guys. I will see you guys later. Again, www.learntheleague.com. Get the ebook. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's an excellent, it's your university degree, League of Legends education. You're getting a degree. Never mind college. You're getting a degree in League of Legends by going to www.learntheleague.com. Get it for you or a new friend or a new family member or anyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.